Hey there, planners. Today I wanted to share with you these two notebooks, which are two Commonplace notebooks that I have started to keep recently. I am experimenting with this concept of commonplacing. I'm using one for work and one personally, and I wanted to share with you how it's going and what I'm learning and how it's becoming a very functional part of my system. So go grab your planners and let's get planning. So if you're not familiar with this concept of keeping a commonplace notebook or a commonplace book, I would say, where have you been? This ancient practice really has gained a ton of notoriety and momentum over the last few years as people are sharing how they're using this pretty old practice of keeping a commonplace notebook. I actually took the time in the beginning of my own commonplace notebook to sort of commonplace about commonplacing, sort of like commonplace inception here. But just a few notes that I gathered in my own, search to sort of ground myself in what is this practice meant to be. It's really meant to be a commonplace notebook is just a place where you are capturing knowledge, like a book of personal knowledge, things that you would tell a friend, an accumulation of these that you would, information that you would want to share with yourself or others, all different facets of you collected in a spot, kind of like a tool to help your memory, to organize information, and also to spark new ideas, make connections between that information. If you think about the different categories of information we may collect in a physical notebook or even a digital space, I really like the way Park Notes on YouTube described the different categories. So you've got a diary, which is a sort of collection of, your feelings, Dear Diary type feelings and thoughts that are time bound, like today this happened. You've got a journal, which is a collection of your thoughts over various periods of time. You have a compendium, which is a collection of information on a specific topic. And then you have a commonplace notebook, which is a collection of quotations, passages, references used to develop your own thoughts and ideas about things. So very old concept, commonplace. You can read through history about various authors and scientists and historical figures who kept commonplace notebooks. And it's interesting to watch the resurgence of this methodology come back because we have so many digital tools. Why in the world would we need a notebook? And for me personally, it's about something about writing out the things that I'm learning or the notes that I'm taking or the things that I hear that feel meaningful, that allows me the ability to come back to them and make connections to other things that I'm hearing. So to really build ideas of my own. There's something very powerful about using a physical notebook to do that I do not find in the digital tools. It's difficult to connect. I'll use Pinterest as an example. It's difficult to connect this idea from this pen on this board down in this collection to this idea in this pen and this board. Whereas in a notebook, I can do that. Same thing with like a Notion template, right? I have things so sorted and categorized that it's difficult to see the connections. So that's kind of a little bit about what is a commonplace notebook. I have been really fascinated and watching what's happening in this world of commonplacing over the last, I'd say probably year to 18 months, and just recently decided to dive in because I felt like I had two areas that I wanted to really focus on. Now, commonplacing can be about a specific topic. It can be about anything, random thoughts and ideas and quotes and passages that you read, things like that, or it can be focused in an area. There really are no rules, right? This is sort of, you tailor the system to you. To me, it feels very much like bullet journaling, where you tailor the system to you and what you need. And to that end, I have actually started 2 Commonplace notebooks recently. I have one that I'm using for work specifically, and I have one that I'm using in my personal life. So I'm actually going to start with the work notebook, because I recently did an update on my work planner system that I'm using a A5 ring planner from Erin Condren to house and organize myself at work. It's working so well. But I did feel that I needed an additional part to my system, which is just note-taking, idea capture, brainstorming, things that I wouldn't necessarily want to take up valuable ring space in my ring planner. I'm going to open this because that glare is so glary. Things that I wouldn't necessarily want to take up space on my, rings, my limited space there with, because I don't know that if I'll need them long term or not. So I decided to add this notebook. This is actually an A5 Hobonichi notebook that I have put a Midori A5 cover, clear cover on, and just put a little sticker paper down to decorate it. This green matches the color of the Basil A5 planner from Erin Condren. I will have everything linked down below. I'll also have the work planner system video linked down below if you're interested. I did go ahead and put a 2025 sticker on it because I don't see this one notebook lasting longer than this year. So put a few stickers down in here. These are some of my favorite stickers. I got these somewhere. I can't even remember where I got the idea from, but then I recreated them in I think I saw them on Pinterest or something like that. I recreated them in Canva, and it's just like funny work sayings like, please advise. It's a phrase in English, and it means washing my hands of this matter and reallocating responsibility to you. I just love that. It's like all the phrases that you, as discussed, just following up, per my last email, just to clarify, and you're on mute. Well, how do you still not understand how this works? It's so funny. They're so funny. Okay, so I'm going to walk through how I have this set up and how I'm using it. Of course, I have actual work notes, brainstorms, ideas, things like that in here. Those will be blurred out. But I think you're going to be able to see enough to get the concept of the structure and allow us to have a conversation about how I'm using it, so that maybe it will give you some ideas. And again, this is purely work focused for me. It's a very effective tool. Okay, I'm going to start with what's in the front and what's in the back. Here I have just added this sticky pocket. These are a lot like the sticky pockets that you get from the Target, back to school sale, but I get them on Amazon in a huge pack that comes in a bunch of different sizes, and I keep repurchasing them. They are amazing. These also are from Amazon. These are little date stickers. I've cut them down. They come in larger sheets. I actually have the pack right here. So they come like this, and there's one sheet for each month, and you can see like the month and the date. I find this really helpful because a lot of times the way I search for things in my work planning system is by date, because my calendar, my Outlook calendar, will tell me when a meeting occurred. So if I know, this very important meeting about ABC project occurred on, April 19th, then anything related to that topic or that project from that meeting would be on something dated April 19th, whether it be emails or, so I could search through here by April 19th. So that's one searchability feature that I am using in this notebook. I have another searchability feature too, which I'll talk about, but every day that I am going to use it, I don't use this every day, actually. There's not notes in here for every day, but if I go to pick this up and use it, I will come here and grab the right date sticker to mark the day. Okay, and then let me flip to the back. In the back, I have a couple of different things. First of all, I have this little cheap pin loop from Amazon, and I have this this is actually a Hobonichi Weeks pocket that I stuck back here. I've got this printable, this planner belongs to, and on the back of here I've got my contact information in case somebody finds that. I have my key. So I am using a color code across all of my work planning system. And I did talk about this in my work planning system video about how I set up my A5 ring planner. But, yellow means the same thing in my Outlook calendar, in my email flag system, in my notes, in my project color coding. And I have these dots, which I picked up a huge pack. There's gazillions of them, probably enough for a lifetime in one pack, thousands of dots. And they have all the colors in my system. And I use these dots in this notebook when I am talking about one of these items. If I'm talking about the item that is color-coded orange, I will be using an orange dot on that page. And so I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. But that is another way. So I have two searchability tools in this notebook. One is the color coding, the other is the date. And so those are the two ways that I organize information in here. There are lots of different ways to organize information, and YouTube is just a wealth of information about commonplacing. And so I would encourage you, if this is a system that might be helpful to you, go do some research on YouTube. Park Notes is a YouTube channel, and I'll have it listed down in the description box below, that I would highly recommend, because just so many videos and so many different ideas to implement, and really a channel that is like fully about commonplacing. So very good resource there. So like I said, this is a Hobonichi A5 notebook. It's not a planner, it's a notebook. It does have the Hobonichi paper. I find that the Uni Jetstream ballpoint pens, I like the multicolor because it does give me some flexibility when I'm taking notes, but I find this pen to be the absolute best pen for Hobonichi paper, even the Bad Batch paper that we saw this year. So I'm going to flip to a page that is very representative of a couple of days and some notes, and sort of talk about the structure there. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I've got this page covered up with the paper, so I don't have to blur all of that out. And you will see some of this is blurred out as well. I want to point out a couple of structural elements about this page. First of all, notice that I've got the date of April 7th here at the top. I don't predate or pre-set up any of the pages here because I don't use this every day. But when I need to use it, I pick it up and I go and immediately grab the date dot. Sometimes I'll come back and put these dates in, if I'm like in a hurry and didn't anticipate that I was going to be taking notes, I'll go grab it and put it back in. The other thing I have here is this yellow dot. And that is from my color coding system. That means that this section here above the line is related to my topic in yellow. So I can quickly see when I come to this page that these topics are about the yellow and the brown items, color-coded items. That's very easy for me to pick out on the page. It really helps with searchability. The other thing you'll see here and here is that I have these squares that have been colored in. As I'm jotting down notes, and these notes can come from a meeting that I'm on, a discussion that I'm having with someone, a sort of download from an event that I went to, or just, maybe I bumped into somebody in the hallway, we had a discussion, I come back to my office, I sit down, I make some notes about that, things I don't want to forget. They could be brainstorming. I'm just like thinking about a certain project and I have some ideas I want to capture. It can also be as I'm reading through emails and I'm gathering information, or reading through materials, reports, things like that, gathering information. I want to pause and, empty out my thoughts about this and put them down somewhere safely. That's where these notes come from. As I'm doing that, if I think of an action or a to-do that I have, an action that I want to take, I will draw in a, blank square checkbox and keep going. If I can, do it very quickly, whatever the action is, if I can do that very quickly, I'll just do it. But if it's something that's going to take time, I need to schedule, or I need to prioritize, or I need to, plug that on a certain date, whatever it is, I will just draw that little checkbox and keep going. And that's what this was, a checkbox here and checkbox here. The way that these get closed is at the end of the day And also at the end of the week, when I'm doing my weekly review process, I will come back and scan through all of my notes, reread all of my notes for the day, and then again for the week. At the end of the day, I'm really just looking high level. I'm not reading every word. I'm really looking for what those action items are and where do I need to put them into my planning system so that they don't get lost. For example, this one actually was I needed to schedule something and put it on my calendar. So when I was able to take the time to schedule that in my calendar, then I came back and marked it closed because I no longer needed to track it here. It was safely in my planning system somewhere else. This one was I needed to actually reach out and talk to someone. So that's a to-do. I moved that into my weekly to-do list and crossed it out here. I don't want to manage my day or my time or my action items from my Commonplace notebook, but it does happen to be a place where to-dos may be generated. And so I'm only keeping them open here until I get them safely into my broader system. If you want to know what that broader system looks like in organization prioritization, I'll have the larger video listed down below. So you can see I had some notes here that same day, April 7th, because it's still under that heading. There hasn't been another date sticker. I had more notes. This looks like from a meeting that I attended. More notes on the topic that is color-coded brown. And then I'm going to flip the page. All right, on this page you can see I've got, again, yellow with more notes. And this looks like a review session of a presentation, project presentation that I was preparing for, reviewing with other folks and had some notes. I had some action items here. And then we come to the next day. So you could see the April 8th sticker here. Looks like I started taking these notes and came back and squeezed this in. But so you also can see I put a line when a certain section is done, like I started taking notes about this project, took the notes, and when that notes taking session was done, there's a line, a horizontal line across the page underneath it. I mean, this is so basic and so messy, but so effective. Okay, and then we come to the next one and you can see a totally different color. This is a totally different topic, some notes there. It spills onto the next page. I've got the line here to mark that it's done. Here's another one related to a different section. So on. You can see how it just continues to go. And then I'll turn one more page to show you what that looks like. All right, I'm covering up this page so I don't have to blur the whole thing out, but you can see here is another day, the 9th. I've got 3 different color codes here. I've got some action items that were captured that I ended up moving. And so you can see that this is how I'm using it. And it has been such a great tool for me. I call it a commonplace. It's not just a note-taking notebook, and it's not just a, like meeting minutes notebook. It's more than that, and I'm calling it a commonplace because it really is a collection of all the different inputs that I'm gathering from work, which could be project-related, could be my own brainstorming ideas, it could be from meetings, it could be from things I read. I'm really just collecting them all here. And what is fascinating to me already is when I go back to review these pages at the end of the week during my weekly review, I read through all of the notes, every word that I captured for that week. And what I'm finding is connections between different projects and different things. I have identified themes, trends, higher level findings and things that I need to be thinking about or planning for. That has been really powerful. Now, what I haven't gotten to yet, and will happen soon because I've been in here almost a month now, I'm doing that on a weekly basis, but I really think there's going to be value in going back more than a week. And so I think part of my monthly review process is going to be to go back and read the entire month and really extract those things that cross over multiple weeks, multiple months, those trends. So I'm also, as I do my weekly review and I'm seeing those connections, I'm capturing them in here. in its own section of note-taking and, sort of titling that weekly roll-up so I can see the things that I've extracted out from the week's notes. So that is a look at my workplace Commonplace notebook. It is really an effective tool, and I think there's so much more that this is going to teach me. The more I use it, the more I'm going to get out of it. So this has been very effective. Now let me talk about this notebook, which is also sort of still in experiment mode. This is a Moleskine notebook. It is an A5. It is lined. It has, I went through and numbered the pages. It has 386 pages. I got this notebook mainly because I just could not stop seeing it on YouTube and Instagram. So I was like, I got to see what this notebook is about. I'm not typically a lined notebook person. However, I will say I am somewhat enjoying the lined paper on this notebook. This paper is tricky though. You can see my pen test. It's not great paper. Even ballpoint pens don't do well on this paper. But I bought the notebook, it wasn't free. So I spent the money and I was kind of like, well, what am I going to use this for? And that's when I really decided I wanted to start keeping a Commonplace notebook. So because of this YouTube channel and basically just because of my brain and how I think and what I enjoy thinking about, I do a lot of reading and thinking about and sharing ideas for planning, organization, productivity, things like that. So this is really what Park Notes calls a compendium, which is a collection of information on one topic. This is really a notebook about productivity and what I'm studying and learning about productivity. This, of course, is just like what is a Commonplace notebook. I did add in an index. I have not been very faithful with using it. I need to come back and really fill it in, but I did start with an index. I took some notes about note-taking and like the note-taking methods. So this has been a study that I've been doing for a long time, trying to perfect my note-taking methods, because as you can see, I use a lot of note-taking at work. I use a lot of note-taking in my personal life. It's like, for me, note-taking is sort of my brain working. I need to put it down on paper in order to process things. And so that's how I remember things, and I really want to perfect the note-taking method. So I actually have been studying the many various forms of note-taking. I think I had like 12 different methods here. And you can see I'm doodling, I'm using, sort of mind mapping, tables, arrows, drawings, color. I'm playing around here. What you won't see is, as I have clearly defined and I'm using a organization system with really two searchability factors in my work commonplacing. I don't have that yet in my personal commonplacing. I'm using a couple of things so far. So heading, the first heading, what this section of note-taking is going to be about is, I don't want to say fancy, but it's like, it's like lettering, like really basic lettering, but it's lettered. And then I'm using an arrow down here at the bottom to say, this commonplace notes on this topic is not done, right? And so it continues. As the page continues, I'm no longer lettering, but I'm using 3 dots, the title of what this section is about, the word continued, and 3 more dots. That tells me that this is continued from the previous page. Again, a little symbol down here, line with a period, says that's the end of this topic. Okay. I also have page numbers that I went in and added. I just added the even number of page numbers to every page. So those are like some of the tools that I'm using. But what I haven't done is color coding, dating. I don't think dates are going to be important here because I will not be searching by date. Who cares when I took who cares what the date was when I wrote these down? It's not important to the material. I also haven't done any color coding. I am thinking about color coding. So I started to make some notes for myself about how other people are color coding and things that I see, ideas that I see that I might want to implement. I've got those. I've got kind of a running list of how I might want to think about that, but I haven't really figured it out. This is an annotation guide. As I'm reading books about productivity and organization and things like that, time management, I do like to annotate those books, and so I have been making some notes on annotation, different symbols to use, things like that. And then I go into a series of books that I have already read and made annotation in the books, extracting those and putting them in here so that I can sort of build my commonplace of information from these books that I thought was powerful. So this is Building a Second Brain, the notes that I took from the book. So I did not reread the book. I just went through and scanned where are all my notes, highlights, margin notes that I took, underlines, highlights, all that stuff. Pulled that out and put that all in here. And again, you can see lettering, arrow says this continues, 3 dots, the title again continued, 3 dots, arrow says it continues. So I can quickly see that this is all still Building a Second Brain, and then I've got the line with the period down here. So those are all my notes about Building a Second Brain. Then I decided to do a reading list because I have read a ton of books about, this topic, but as I read, I get more recommendations for books I want to read, because many times nonfiction authors will reference other authors or other books, other materials. So I decided to go ahead and do a full list, and I've got 2 checkboxes for each book. One is that I've read it. The other is that I've commonplaced about it. So I've got a lot of work to do here, and I can continue with this list. I also decided to make a to research list, because as I'm taking notes, I'm realizing there's a lot of rabbit trails that I want to go down. So for example, so far, some of the things that as I'm making these notes, my curiosity says, oh, let's go look into that. Like learning styles. What are the different learning styles? Operating procedures, weekly reviews. Richard Feynman, really want to, I keep running into that name as I'm reading and studying different methods. So I want to go, dig down into that. So just things, writing styles to hold attention, productivity apps, things that I want to research more that, if I'm ever like, ooh, what should I read about? I can come here and I have a very ready list. It also keeping this list prevents me from chasing rabbits down rabbit holes as I'm reading a book. Here's my notes on Getting Things Done by David Allen. Lots of good stuff here. I think I had many pages of that, and you can see it ends here. The 12-week year by Moran. Feel Good Productivity. And so right now, it's really just me writing down the notes from what I have read and my key takeaways there. I have a couple of times just picked this book up, and I think this is, again, similar to what I'm finding in my work planning system, but it's more complex here. The power is in when I sit down and I read through the notes, and generate my own ideas, reading through the Feel Good Productivity right after I read through the Getting Things Done. And then and this actually happened, I had my own idea, and I mark this my own concept, which makes me think I probably need a color coding system or some sort of signifier that this is not my notes from a book. This is some idea that was sparked by reading back through my notes, making a connection between my notes. So I added that here. That's the way it's going. So you can see this is just in its infancy. I am enjoying it because I love reading the books, but I always feel like when I get to the end of the book, okay, what am I going to do with this? And if I can't find an immediate application, I worry that information will be lost when I think it will be valuable in the future. And this feels like a safe place to house all of my, productivity studies, reading, sort of the passion that I have around systems thinking and, all of that, to house this and see what cross-pollination of all of these ideas results in. Maybe that's so theoretical it makes no sense at this point, but I'm enjoying it. And it's really in its infancy. I would love to hear from you. Have you tried commonplacing? Does anything, if you've not ever heard of this methodology, does anything about this intrigue you? Does this sound like a complete waste of time? All comments are respectfully welcomed. And I would love to keep the conversation going. If you have ideas for me that I should consider or think about, I would love to hear that too. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to Planning Annie for more content like this, and as always, thanks for planning with me.